Okay, so welcome to the Box Gathering, another one of our campfires. Today we're having a chat with a lot of coaches from the Tyne and Weir region up in the northeast, and we thought this would be something that would really be a great conversational point. And the title is, why is Tyne and Weir as a region so successful? So just a quick few introductions here. John Stubbs, you'd like to introduce yourself, mate?
Yeah, John Stubbs, Hartlepool Headland ABC, an assistant performance coach for England boxing.
Laura Sargent?
Yeah, I'm Laura Sargent, East Middlesbrough ABC.
Ant Kelly?
I'm Anthony Kelly, Weymouth Boxing Club.
And finally, last but not least, Matty Stevenson.
Yeah, I'm Matty Stevenson from Bishop Auckland.
Okay, well, yeah, thanks for coming on tonight, guys. It's what day is it? It's Tuesday. It's 7:30 at night, and I know we're all busy. Anyway, so firstly, I'm going to use substitute. So where does actually Tyne and Weir span from? From the south to the north to the east to the west? How sort of big is it roughly? You might want to help him out.
You should have went to Laura for this one, but I think the lowest down. I think the furthest down is Middlesbrough the furthest we go, Laura.
Middlesbrough's the furthest, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask Laura how far up it goes.
So we've got then Annex the top, yeah. So borders of Scotland, kind of.
Oh, really? Goes that far? Okay. Yeah. That's sort of Northumberland area, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay, great. What about how far sort of to the west do we go as well before you start hitting maybe Humberside and Yorkshire?
Oh.
Darlington's probably the furthest, isn't it?
Yeah, I would have said so, yeah.
Okay, down in the southwest of your region. Okay. Yeah. Great. So I had a little look earlier online for how many clubs you had, and it looks a little bit like 75 to 80 clubs, all packed into quite a, well, I wouldn't say a small region. It spreads quite far in places, isn't it? But you're quite sort of packed in certain areas and certain cities around there. So let's just jump straight in with it then. So I'm going to go on, Amth. I'll start with you, mate. So why do you feel Tyne and Weir is so successful, especially in recent decades?
My personal opinion, Adam, is like we're from like there's a lot of council estates. I mean, in Sunderland, for instance, when you're on about how many clubs, I'm sure there's 13 in a radius of 6.5 mile. And I think like with the clubs like Berkeley has produced like champion after champion, probably the most successful club in England, I would say, or one of them. And also like Sir Phil Thomas, Darlington, Wellington, over my coaching of the last 10 years, them have produced time and time again. And I think it's really because we've got a lot of rough estates. There's the docks and everything. That's my opinion.
Okay, what do you reckon, Matty? Anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I think, to be fair, I think there's a lot of good coaches. There's a lot of good coaches in the region. Like you've got your Graham Rutherfords, John Stubbs, who's on here, and Weymouth. They've all sort of achieved. They've all had multiple champions. So I think as a, I'm not going to say I'm a young coach, but someone who maybe lacks a bit of experience. Like I've had quite a bit of help from people like that. So if everyone works together, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So you kind of got that cultural reason. You know, you mentioned about the docks, quite a tough area in certain places. You know, quite urban in some areas. But you also mentioned, Matty, about the coaching. So Laura, what is it about the coaching that makes you guys so successful?
They're all nails. No, I think they're a lot of them are old school coaches and have come through that tough era. You know, a lot of them like come from pit villages, and there was a lot of boxing clubs in them days. And I think they're just naturally tough people.
So you got that toughness as well, you know, that kind of real raw toughness, you know, and kids really kind of run through walls for your guys up there. But what about, you know, sort of the nuances of kind of progressing, you know, so coach education, you know, what sort of coach education does it look like up there?
I personally think, I mean, the coach education from when I done my level ones, level twos, Stevie Cranston was there, Ronnie Rowe was there, Dave Binns, and I think because they were very experienced coaches, they brought a lot of knowledge to the courses. My personal experience from learning from the very beginning it was a good basis, you know. So you talk about teaching kids the basics right at the very beginning. I felt as though, as a coach, that's what we were given. A lot of really good basics to go out and then coaching. It's sort of like driving, isn't it? You learn the basics, you go out and you learn your own thing once you start driving. But for the coach education side, I thought it was really good. Looking back on it, was really, really good. But even to touch on some of the things like Anthony and Matty and Laura have said, it is sort of an area where it's a little bit deprived. So it's, you know, there's not a lot of money in the areas. So kids tend to look at sports like boxing more than, you know, you'll get less boys playing cricket and girls playing cricket, where you'll have more kids boxing. So say something like Sunderland, who've got, I think is it 13 clubs, did you say, Anthony? Something like that?
We've got 13 clubs. I'm sure what I did like a few years ago. There's nearly a club on every estate, really, or sometimes two.
So you've got like you've got more kids in more gyms, and I honestly believe it's one thing saying that the tough and the come from council estates, that's what fills the gyms. Then I think where the success probably comes from is if you've got 13 clubs in a city. I know Hartlepool's got, I think there's 5 clubs in Hartlepool, which is a really small town. It's competition and it just breeds success, I think, because so you get these kids because they're picking up this sport rather than a cricket bat. So if you're competing against more people, there's bound to be success there. That's my personal opinion, anyway.
So there's a lot of clubs that are quite close to each other, maybe even walking distance in some parts. So surely that means you're going to get a lot of good sparring and sort of cross-pollination across the clubs.
Yeah, I mean, actually, where my club is, actually, like you would throw a stone at the next club, which is North Star. It's literally like that close. So yeah, there's a lot of sparring. There's a lot of, like in Sunderland, a lot of Sunderland clubs work together. And there's a lot of kids who like to have a go. It's pretty rough, Sunderland. So it's really decent. And I think, as Matty said previously, I think a lot of coaches work together, and I think that brings the coaches on, and you educate each other by the sparring and being in each other's gyms, and the kids learn from each other. That's my opinion.
That's a good point, isn't it? You know, when you do go to another gym and you watch even a spar or you watch a warm up or something like that, you're constantly saying, I'll tell you what, I really like that idea there. So just by jumping gym to gym, you're constantly on that coach education pathway as well. So what about squads? You know, so Matty, what do squads look like over there? Are you often doing Tyne career squads?
I think the system's changed recently. I think they're doing it off postcode. Is that right? So
yeah.
Like the Sunderland squads, like Durham Darlington squads for us. And I think it's Middlesbrough, Hartlepool, and I think and obviously Laura does the girls, which has been very successful. But I think that's just started off, to be fair. So I couldn't really comment on it, to be fair. I think it was only like before this COVID carry on, I think it just started going off postcodes. I think before then, did Alan Topman do it?
Yeah, Alan Topman.
Is
Is
that right?
it, Olympic, is it?
Olympian, yeah. That's Sunderland.
Olympian. Okay.
And I think they did a few squads, a few team matches and stuff like that.
Okay. So Laura, you must have been sort of livid, you know, really livid with COVID, because you having loads and loads of success with the Golden Girls squads that you run with Tyne and Weir. I mean, and they've been up and down the country. I've seen them at the Winter Box Cup down in, where was it, Guildford? Been all over the place. So that must have been frustrating for you.
Yeah, it is. What could you do though, Adam? You know, there's not a lot, but it's. I think it's going to be hard to kind of get them back going again.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a bit more tell us about why you've been so successful with them.
But because it's the way the clubs do with them, it's not me. I have a squad once a month. They come to the squad. I try to get as many girls involved as I can. Also other coaches as well, because obviously, like you say, we're always learning, and I like to try and get a lot of the women coaches on, because I feel like sometimes they don't always maybe get the opportunity to maybe lead things in the clubs. So I try and get as many of them involved as well. I've had John on and Anthon and stuff. So we have a squad once a month, and if there's a competition or a box cup that comes up, the majority of them have the opportunity to enter. So really, I mean, I get them to bond and have that good relationship with each other. But really, it's the clubs that do the work with them. I just give them different opportunities.
Sure. I mean, you saying that you're doing that once a month, for me, that sort of blows my mind a little bit, because it doesn't happen in certainly doesn't happen in all regions. So they're getting that opportunity to have good quality sparring with other females. You know, and that's real, isn't it? That's real, rather than
Yeah, I think it's quite important. Yeah, I think it's really important, because I've seen a couple of them where they might have been the only girl in their gym for a long time, and I've seen them when they've walked in and they've seen like 20 or 30 other females there, and they literally don't know what to do, because they've kind of. But that's the reality of things, isn't it? When they come to a box, they're not going to box a lad, are they? Or spar a lad, they're going to box a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of like brings them back down to earth,
Sure.
I think that's
really let their hands go, can't they?
Yeah.
The thing we've sent through is they've absolutely loved it. They've thrived, and they've grew instantly as boxers. We're going to Laura's sessions. I think it's brilliant what she does, and I think, like, I've been there and listened to. I think the team ethos is brilliant. I think it's brilliant what you do, and I think it grows the girls pretty fast because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And Laura's like a brilliant coach as well.
Thank you.
What about in terms of so obviously you mentioned about the female coaches getting involved with the Golden Girls, but also the male coaches. How has that really brought on the male coaches? Because in some respects it's not a different skill set, but sometimes you have to have a bit of a different approach with certain people. Do you see what I mean? You approach things in different ways slightly sometimes.
Yeah,
How's it kind of stretch the guys a bit?
Yeah, the majority of the ones that I've had in to help are kind of all used to working with females, so they're all pretty good. And like John and Ant, like most of the girls know them anyway, because we all go about the club sparring and stuff. So the girls are just happy, and I think it just gives the girls different opportunities. It's not just me giving out saying do this, do that, or whatever. I'll, like, when the coaches come in, I'll just say to them, do you want to take the warm up? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do a skill set here? So I kind of like try and share it out, so I'm not doing everything, and obviously put different ones on sparring so they can get used to taking sparring and stuff. Obviously under a level 2 and that. So
what girls have you got up there? So what are the big names?
Oh God, we've got loads, haven't we? There's Megan Bainbridge, Savannah Stockley, Danielle Marshall. How was John? That was out. Can't think of everybody off the top of my head.
What that actually goes on squads? Is that what we're talking about?
Alex Brown?
Alex, I don't think Alex really goes to squads. Courtney Cox started attending squads. I'm trying to think now.
I know exactly.
You've had Hannah Shields, you've had Hannah Robinson, both attending squads.
Yeah.
Both obviously.
Kerry.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm trying to think who else. It's every time I've been there, it's been a really strong squad. You've got someone like Hannah Robinson, who's GB, and then you've got little Mary from Phil Thomas's, who's 10-year-old. Do you know what I mean? And it's really diverse, and it's good because it's not just the fact that they're mixing with other girls, but they're mixing with really quality girls as well. So I think Laura's probably done herself a little bit short there, because she gives them the platform. So that I know they've been away to Wesker, they've been away to Sweden, they've went to the Female Box Cup. So they're getting these opportunities, but it's also the mixing with not just girls, but girls of a really good quality. Girls who've been at international tournaments before, boxed for England, boxed for GB, and I think it brings them all on.
And it's not just a platform as in let's be politically correct and put a platform on for the girls to show that we're being inclusive. Actually, it's a hotbed of competition where the girls that come on there are there to win medals. They're there to perform on national stages as well. Stubbsy, I think there's one person we might have missed out. A certain world champion back in the day has gone pro. 2 words, Clarissa Shields.
It's just been announced today she's going to box Hannah Rankin for the middleweight world championship in 5 weeks. So hopefully another world title. But I mean, as a whole, I think the female boxing up has always been strong. Of course, I mean, she's not on today. Amanda would have been probably really good to speak about it. But you've had Amanda Coulson, who sort of, in a lot of respects, led not just up here, but in the country early days was one of the leading women, and not leading women even just in performance, but actually sort of was one of the first to sort of break through and be recognised, as a good quality boxer. Obviously Savannah Marshall as well, probably a couple of years after. There was a girl, I can't remember her name. She was from Newbiggin, blonde girl. I honestly can't remember her, but and she boxed for England as well. So there's been a lot of girls over the years up here, and I don't know if it's just that the women are made tougher up here or what, but it's definitely sort of been a real source of good female boxers, up in the area.
Sure. So let's move across to the guys now. So obviously there's big clubs up there, and there's big names. I think people like comes to mind. I'm not that familiar with your region as much as I'm from down here, but people like Josh Kelly, Josh Lever, Louis Cunningham. Names that have that were big names that are very synonymous with your area. What else is knocking around at the moment? What are the up and coming ones?
Do you want to go?
There's somebody who won it actually. He was a 64 kilo from Northumberland Fire. Northumberland Fire. Who's he called, Laura?
Connor Sams, is it?
Connor Sams. I'm sure he won the under-20s, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did.
Obviously last year, because obviously this year's got cancelled. And I think we've got a good few youth coming through, like Sir Dan Toward, who from Berkeley, who went to the Europeans the year before. So the likes of him should be challenging, you would imagine, and obviously there's a few good youth 202s that'll be moving into the senior ranks if all being well next year. But I think there's definitely a lot of strength in the seniors and the youths and juniors as well. We've got some good kids coming through at all levels, I would say, out the meals.
You've got Joe Tyne as well, who's obviously I think he's in his second year senior now. He's probably knocking on the door at GB. He maybe would have been. Pardon?
It's Darlington.
Darlington.
Yeah.
He's the old. He's the middle brother, isn't he? There's Jim Tyers, there's Joe, and there's William. All won national titles. And like I say, I think Joe was on his second or third assessment at GB just before the lockdown. So I would imagine it wouldn't be long, hopefully, before he's up there as well. Obviously, barely have them all up there, which is, it's really strong. But I think with Berkeley, I think it was so strong it was sort of like the North Repton, wasn't it, at that period? I mean, they're still on there, but there was, I think at one point they had eight boxers at GB, something like that. And again, I think it comes down to competition breeding success. The more successful you've got a boxer, if we're just talking about in a club, if you've got a good kid, a good girl or a good boy, it's something for the other kids in your gym to aspire to. And I think it's the same when you've got a good club in your region. So we've got Berkeley, and I look at Berkeley and I go, I want to be as good as that. I want to have 8 boxers. I want 1 boxer on GB, never mind 8. But you know what I mean? It's something to look at. You need something to sort of aspire to, and that's where the competition comes from. And I think that's a big part of the success in the region.
Mm-hmm. I think what tends to happen as well, obviously you get success come in sort of eras, don't you? So it could be, for example, that Tyne and we are successful in, between 2010 and 2020, but then another region takes over. If you're to stay one of the premier regions in England boxing, what do you guys need to do to keep yourself there and keep yourself at that pinnacle?
I would say get on the. I think I never forget Davy Binns and Stevie Cranston said to me on me level 2, Merseyside and Cheshire were the hotbed and were producing all the great kids when I was on, and they said it's because the coaches are so highly qualified in Merseyside and Cheshire, and it's always stuck with us that, and I definitely think that's why the level 3 what's come out, I think is going to be invaluable to some coaches, and I think if the coach education's good, I think the rest follows Adam, in my opinion. I think, and obviously,
definitely. Go on,
sorry, and the opportunities given, and to John and Ivan and Mick to like coaches in our region, to let them come onto the England squads and like learn from that. I think it's just gonna strengthen our region, and we're gonna keep on improving. That's in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, because I think, like, especially when you say, like, when you go to sparring camps and stuff, you learn so much, don't you? Even if you don't realise it, you know, at the time, when you walk away, you think, wow.
One thing we sort of talked about just before we went and pushed the record button was the kind of strength in depth you guys have in terms of knowledge. You know, so obviously a lot of that comes from, you know, the culture, the fact that you're in each other's gyms all the time. But you mentioned about the coach education. Every time I've spoken to a Tyne and Weir coach, it always massively, I don't know if surprising is the right word, but it always strikes me how much they know their oats. I'm like, bloody hell, they really know their boxing inside out. And it's just a bit of a wow factor. So, you know, where is this all coming from? You mentioned about the coach education. You mentioned about the culture. We mentioned that you're in each other's gyms. But surely there's some other kind of X factor that's knocking around as to why you guys live and breathe boxing so much up there. What's your?
There's no one else to do. There's no one else to do. Sitting here on my own all night.
It's just the passion. I think we have a good passion for the sport.
Sport in general, because look at, you know, I'm sorry, I'm going to say Newcastle. You know, they're famous for their fan base and how fanatical they are. I'm sure there's Sunderland and Middlesbrough fans here looking at me, want to smack me with a backhand. But you know, that area is fanatical, isn't it? About sport in general.
Yeah.
So you've got football, you've got boxing. Are there any other sports, or is it just those kind of two, you know, sort of class of sports that people tend to move towards in Tyne and Weir?
Rugby is it? Rugby in Newcastle.
Rugby,
you have the Falcons down there. But I think you're probably right. It's either football or boxing, your main two sports. I think, to be honest, Hartlepool has a big rugby scene, but yeah, I think more kids. It's more inclusive boxing, isn't it, than rugby? I think sometimes. Mm-hmm. I know. One of the youth boxers for us, he used to play rugby for England as well, and once he got to that sort of level, he said it was very clicky in the fact that if you weren't from private school, you weren't going to go much further.
Okay.
So maybe that's probably why they gravitate more towards football and boxing.
Sure. I think Hannah Shield was a rugby player, was she not?
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, she's a strong, aggressive girl, wouldn't she? As well. So
just
it has that kind of mentality. What's that?
I said just a bit.
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah, just a bit. Absolutely. Okay, so right, let me put this to you, mate. You know, what's next for you in terms of your coach development? What do you feel is your sort of priorities at the moment for you?
I think I'm doing quite well at the minute, so I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing. Keep surround myself around the right people, and just keep learning. I'm looking forward to the season getting back going and seeing what happens. Mm-hmm. Plenty of sparring at these good top clubs. I think.
Not yet, though. Not yet.
Oh, not yet,
obviously.
When we allowed.
Absolutely. What about you, Amp? What's priority for you, mate?
I've got on the level 3, so I'm looking forward to doing that. I think it's good to try and mix with different coaches and obviously like see yourself, Ivan, like everybody on there. So and I would like to try and get a few more opportunities for England if they come around. Because I've done the Tri-Nations with the schools, but I would like to do some with maybe the elites, if there's any Tri-Nations. So I'll just keep on trying to chip away at England and obviously just mix them with like good people, me friends and colleagues around the region. That's next for me, and I would hope to keep on pushing forward.
Sure. Sarge, what's next for
you?
Well,
I've got obviously the level 3 coming up as well, where we can get them going. So I'm looking forward to getting on that, because it just seems like it's been ages, hasn't it, when we've had this break. But I'm looking forward to getting the girls going again, and trying to build that back up as well. Just get them some opportunities and hopefully some box cups and things if we ever get anywhere near boxing.
There we go. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Finally, over to you, Stubbsy. What's priority for you, mate?
I mean, I could say sort of the level 3 that we're on. I'm quite fortunate to be heavily involved with England, so that always helps with your development, working with those kids and in that sort of environment. But to be honest, for myself, the breaks give me a bit of a chance to have a sort of reflect and see where I am as a coach. And I think, to be honest, I'm probably not as a good a coach as I maybe was 12 months ago. So what I've done is decided I'm going to go back to basics a little bit more. And which I have done. Obviously now the gyms are open, and just sort of bring everything back and slow everything down a little bit, a bit more. I think what was is I went through a period of just sort of prepping for one competition to the next, to a championship. I'll be away with England and prep for that, and I just become a coach that's just done loads of pads like that, and there was no tech, there was no sort of thing involved, technique stuff involved. So I'm going to bring myself back to that. So it's not necessarily the level 3, although I am looking forward to it. But it's sort of just probably looking at myself and seeing if can be a little bit better.
Sure. It's interesting, isn't it? When you find yourself, like for championships and things like that, you find yourself in that kind of sharpening area or the tapering area of coaching, and you find yourself, you just turn into a machine rather so much as a coaching one, and sometimes it's a shame because you kind of find yourself, if you're so busy, you find yourself actually not doing development stuff, more just
definitely
catering and sharpening and getting them ready for competition, and it can be quite difficult sometimes, can't it? Fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Final sort of question to you all. Obviously, with the box gathering that you've all been part of, it's been great how everybody's been sharing ideas and getting through lockdown, and and being a bit vulnerable, which boxing coaches aren't massively famous for. They like to, typically we kind of like to ring fence things and hide our own information, but everyone's been sharing. Have you been sort of experiencing stuff, up there with WhatsApp groups and Facebook, and been keeping in contact with each other up there and supporting each other as well, not just on the box gathering, but as a region?
A little bit.
I mean, obviously you guys have been in contact a lot with each other.
I have to speak to Ant every single day. He's my comfort blanket.
But I mean, it is pretty odd, really, Adam, because you probably haven't spoken to people as much as you would like because of like the situations, and weeks pass you by, and I haven't spoken to some coaches I would see as good friends as much as I would like, because I don't know, you're into this routine at the moment of going to work, going to the gym, and like there's no boxing, so there's not a lot of communication.
Sure.
What I've been.
Okay. But it's obviously
I've got to say, they only ever get in touch with me when they want something.
The go-to.
Yes.
You're right. Go-to. What, cards and things like that?
Everything.
Okay. So, but let's take COVID out of the picture though. Beforehand, obviously, you've all mentioned that you think you're so successful because you're in each other's gyms, you're learning off each other, you do support each other as a region. And because of that, that cross-pollination we talked about earlier, you're all able to learn from each other, and I think that's something we can all take from the conversation without sounding too sappy.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So thanks for your time tonight. It's been about 40 minutes now, give or take, having a conversation. We look forward to drawing you in the next round of some national championship soon, and fingers crossed. I'm Southern Counties. We do well against you. So keep up the good fight, and I'll speak to you soon, guys.